All right, Reckless. Here we go. Um, part two of keep reviews and back to back days here. So I'm gonna kind of go through the same process that I went through with Golf's account. Um, I think I spent 10-15 minutes kind of just perusing through here, and I'll kind of give you relatively similar directions. So I'm going to start with something that probably look away uh, that you probably don't want to see, but I think it gives a good indication of what I want to talk about, and I think what's important as we look to build defenses and build them strong for the future. So this is the hit from SVS. Obviously a big loss. Apologies. I think you dropped bubble. I don't think you were intending to get smacked like this. But I would say a couple things that I want to highlight from here that I think are important for you to realize and then for you to work on as you move forward and get more, call it PvP ready. First, from a buff standpoint, you're getting smacked with a 2,500% range troop attack. There's not much you're gonna do there at K36 of protecting yourself from that. I think that being said, I would say in total at K36, I would say your buffs are low. I wouldn't consider, I would say by the time you, just in a general rule, by the time you reach 35, that's when I would expect your defensive buffs for sure to start creeping over 1,000 across the board. That's where I think you start breaking through at 35 to like 1,000. You have enough nodes in the research tree. You have enough time to do refunds and all that stuff. So I assume that's where I would assume that they would be looking at this and seeing your highest buff being almost 800% range troop attack. That's, I would say, low for where you should be at K36. Now, I know you weren't intending to take this in. I know you're working on your account. That's not the point of that, was not to bash you, but I think to give you direction of like what's important and why it's important. This is a good example. So we'll highlight one more thing here, and I think it's an important point and kind of goes back to what I had talked about with Goff's account is Boudica, who you have on your wall here. Great, 3 stars. I'll dive into her in a second. It's supposed to protect your top tier mounts. Look at what happened to your top tier mounts during that attack. 1.2 million gone. Actually, more than that. Sorry, 2 million gone. 900. They killed 998, and that's with the general that's supposed to protect them. So my point being that Boudica works for high tier mounts, but you also have to layer that with just higher buffs in total to be able to make the math work around protecting. T14 mounts, I assume T15s are similar at a different level, are just going to be hard to protect in general. They're going to die easily. That's why when you're trying to build your account and focusing on protecting high tier mounts, it's a difficult thing to do. And that's why I tend to steer people away who aren't ready yet or who aren't spending of using somebody that's just going to protect mounts. So just something to consider as you're going through. I mean, some of these things I can kind of see your build here, which is nice in this report. I mean, you have a decent amount of siege. You can see that killed. I think that the T14s probably killed the most of any single troop type, and then the rest you can see where the ground, the range, again, mounts, your T13 mounts, 1.2 million gone, 208 killed. So horse does very little for you as you look at the defense at least. I would say as you continue to go down this list, I would say layers always could be thicker. I think the goal probably is to be about 1 million would be my guess as you look at your layers as you go down. And then the same advice that I gave off, I would give to you. At this point, with where your buffs are right now, you absolutely should not be training any troop except for T1, 2, or 3. Now, where you focus that, and hold on, let me turn Do Not Disturb on. Where you focus that is going to be dependent on how you want to build your defense. I think that's the beautiful thing about and why I enjoy that part of the game because there's so many different ways for you to be able to build that it's not just a one size fits all attack. It's kind of like there's a general template for it, right? And you're going out and you're saying, hey, if I'm going range, I know generally what to do defense. There's so many options of things that you do and ways that you can build. And one of the things I'll look at here is you have more ground in here than mount. Is that the direction you want to go? I mean, T1 ground trap is certainly a option of what you can build. You have to refine correctly to do it, but that's certainly a way that you can go. I would say probably still having getting to 100 million T1 mounts is probably a good idea, but you certainly can bolster ground. And then as you look at your layers up here, maybe you turn yourself into heavy on ground. Maybe that's the option. I don't, there's not a best way to do it. Again, that's the beauty of it. You kind of get to decide which way that you want to go with the defense and how you want to do it. And I'll kind of give you the things that you should focus on if you want to go a specific way. So we'll get out of this, save you from too much more trauma. But as I look at the generals, and I'll use those two, Boudica and Leonidas, as your thinking that those are probably your main generals. I mean, you have a few other options in here, but since they were on your wall, I'm going to um, call them your mains. Obviously, gear looks good. Skills looks like you got a flex spec, great. As you know, that's super important to be able to have that on there. Skill books look good. Obviously, protecting your mounts as much as you can. Um, Refines, I would say That's the area where you're going to have to determine the direction you want to go with the amount of low tier ground that you have, it's not going to do much unless you refine your gear to support that. I see you do have some ground flats on here that I think that look reasonable. Um, but that's going to be a huge part of your defense is being able to protect those low tier troops. The only way you protect them, the only way, because Evan does not give flat buffs out anywhere else except for refines. So you have to work the refines to match how you're going to build the bottom tier of your keep. And with, like I said, with where your buffs are right now, the only way you're going to protect yourself building thick bottom layer, which will be good for forever in the game. That's never going to be a disadvantage for you building that out. Because even if you, as you progress and you want to start, you get your buffs up, you just want to start building higher tier. That's great. That lower tier is never going to be a disadvantage. So I think it's always important to focus on that right now and making sure that gets built out properly. Um, Again, refines is the way to go. Gear looks good. I mean, that's Parthian gear. That looks great. I would say the one thing I see in here, Leonidas, call that not super heavily invested in him. Again, I think I gave this advice before, but Siege range, Archer range, those are probably the two most important books as you look to build bigger. For you, though, right now, probably Archer is important. Siege is probably a little bit important, but those are probably the two books that I would look to add and probably take away from two of the ground, sorry, books that you have. But where you take those away, you can kind of decide. Personally, I think for ground, probably HP is the most important stat for them. So attack and defense take away, but there's a lot of different opinions on that. So you can kind of decide where you want to go. Now, this is where I would put a giant X on stopping what you're doing with Leonidas because as I look in your inventory, this guy much better, newer general, has a covenant, ground focused. If ground is the direction that you want to go and how you want to build, go forward. This is your guy right here. Stop with Leo. this is your guy right here. So focus on him. If that's the direction you want to go, start looking at his covenant, seeing who you have. Looks like you actually got a decent amount of the covenant generals. You got a ton of covenant stones to be able to unlock in city troop attack, in city troop HP, in city troop. So those are all great stats because those are these ones up at the top here are all troops. So that's great. But again, same thing I said before. If you go with somebody like Brock and somebody like Boudica as your pair, you have no siege buffs in there. That's why the other option I saw as going through here, and obviously I approve of him because I use him, but Marshall's going to give you a little bit more balance. Again, back to the same point. You get to decide how you want to build, what the direction is you want to go. You just want to make sure that the guys that you have defending are the ones that have the buffs that support the troops inside. So that's the direction I would go there. Um, Next thing from a B standpoint, I would say I'm surprised, I guess, at the limited number that you have open here. I mean, this guy, siege attack, I mean, ideally is going to be on a sub. I see you are working him up to get the seals open. He's a good one because I think he has two good ones, I think. Yeah, he has marching range troop attack and marching ground troop HP. Those are two key stats from an attacking standpoint for both of those troop types. So that's a great one, in my opinion, to build up. You got 5,000, almost 6,000 blood crystals there. I think that's a good one. Layer some in there once you get him to 10, but grinding on getting him up, I think is important. And then I think I saw in your inventory you have like 400 scales maybe. So I would say that would be a place where next time that rolls around, pick somebody else up and at least focus on who it is. You can kind of decide as you go through here. Obviously, these guys I think, are 800, so you'd have to focus on somebody else. Nandy's going to be good for putting on your wall. So he's kind of the new Godzilla would be my guess. So he's the guy. He's the guy I would probably put on your wall general when you pick him up. Good for defense, but obviously you can kind of choose who you want based on the buff needs that are in here. But unlocking some more of these, and especially like I said, unlocking those seals go forward. That's a huge benefit. It's interesting how a lot of the things are pretty similar between the two. General Hall, same exact thing as Goth. You need to grind to get these guys. This is Tavern, this is Tavern, this is Tavern, and these two victorious in strategy. If I go into your treasure here, activation requirement, victorious strategy, boom, 15. I can see in here you already have most of them to level 3. So my guess is you have enough scrolls to get them to level 3 as well. So that's a big, probably 40% buff increase there just by grinding through the tavern. Obviously, that costs gems and it's time, but if you're looking for places to activate buffs, that's where I would spend your time. Um, Final couple things here. So, Blazons again, I won't go through this since as in detail as I did with golf because I think it's a similar story here. But like as I look through some of these, your starting was attack for monsters and then training capacity. Trash. That should not even been touched as a Blazon. So if I look at this and I'm going honor shadow here, that one's not bad because that's kind of like a monsters and attack. That's not terrible. That's not where I would start. This one's not bad. Oh no, sorry, trash. Didn't see the load. This one's pretty good. If I'm not, you can go through the rest of these and see, but this would be one in rally because that's how you're going to be killing most of your monsters in rally. Benefit mounted troop attack, both sides of the wall. That's a good one. I would say that's probably where I would start. Use that to upgrade. And it's the same story with a lot of these where it's like in rally range, fine, range troop load, trash, and then you upgrading that range troop training capacity, double trash. So I would toss those immediately and start over and go through that same process of finding two of the best, most relevant PvP buffs in there, and then upgrading the level that way. Other things, I guess I'll spin through the generals. It looks like you're using Prime. Great. I would say from a gear standpoint, that's not terrible. This is actually the gear I use on my ground ground general, so it has buffs. This needs to go on your defense general. This should not even be anywhere near your your mount general because I don't think there's any. Yeah, it means the debuff for ground troop defense, but that's not super necessary because you're already smacking it with the proper counter. And then same thing with your gear at K36, K35. Ares is kind of a minimum. I would be I'd be working to get that up. Looking here, Suchet. So you got some Civ on this guy. You got a wild mix on here. So I mean, obviously this is Aztec is great. No issues there. Got to work on the refines. That's not surprising. You got some random ass stuff on here too. So I would say continue to work on the gear, making sure you got proper gear is important on those guys. Wouldn't spend a ton of time. Oh, I mean, damn, you got. I don't think I even have a full right side hand yet for siege. I mean, this guy's good. Is good reinforcing ground general. Obviously, this is great gear. You need to work on the refines. These boots, though, it's not bad from a siege perspective, but I think probably still the benefit from the choreo combined as you put on Boudica, like for Boudica or whoever your main is, like that bracer that was on Napoleon and these boots, you can see the 2 out of 6s in city crown and mount troop defense and HP plus 30. That's a pretty big jump. I would say that's probably where you need to have that gear. I'm glad I went through these because you got some all over the place gear here. Uh, this is fine. Zacian certainly can go the full set here. A lot of people I have the helmet. I think I have slightly different here. I think I have the plant ring, but I think the key is if you're going to go with Sacian and not the and on here and here and not the Thebes and the plant from a ring standpoint, getting really you're doing that for this 4 out of 6 to get that March capacity is huge at 20%. Obviously, that requires you getting supremacy here. I would say that if you ever do get a piece of supremacy here, the range is probably where you want to focus that and buying and quote using that scroll on one of these guys here. Zacian probably the Bident, I think is the weapon is probably the most useful to get that 20%. I think is important. Um, yeah, I would say just take a look at like where and why you have your gear. I don't know. Like this looks like this is probably your main attacking siege general. So this probably is where the hay and gear should be on, but again, you'll kind of work through that piece of it and make sure the gear is on. And just let me know if you have questions as you're moving stuff around. From a champion standpoint, Max Helen, almost max, not open. Looks like you just got no. Oh, okay. Well, you got two of the premium guys here, and then not her, but okay. So that's great. More champions the better. They're the ones that are going to give you some really good in city buffs there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I missed that I went over for Civ treasures. Let's see where those are. Level 3, so those are in a good spot. Looks like you're on your way to upgrading there. Oh, I guess the one place I didn't go with golf that I wanted to go here with you was like duty and subs. So these all look good. I mean, you're working your way through. You need to find Menchikov from the tavern. I think he's one of the ones you're missing him anyways to be your keep officer. He's a huge deal just because I'll show you his buffs in here. What is he Russian? Yeah, I mean construction speed great. That's a huge bonus for sure. But then as you start leveling up in city, so everything 15 in city, so that's everything up 15. Construction up 10. So like those are pretty massive buffs. Obviously then from a spec standpoint, construction speed and other things are important as you can start to spend the runes on him. So That's important, I think, to get your duty generals set up properly. Do you have a duty general in here? Oh, yeah, Toyotomi. Okay, yeah. So he's at special. Yeah. So as soon as you can kind of get him to super, I think that probably happens at like level 38, maybe. I think you probably have enough power to get him, or enough buffs within him to get him to super. But yeah, that's approved there. Oh, and then from a sub standpoint, yeah, these all look good. I mean, there's a lot of the same guys I use too. Um, Gear wise, full Parthian, okay. A mixed bag, one Achaemenid. So as you focus on subs, getting on your PvP guys full Parthian Achaemenid, that's a um, that's going to be a key. And then just so you're aware, like this one from a debuff standpoint does take effect. These only affect your troops inside your sub, the troop inside your sub. So those aren't worth it, except for because you need to unlock them to be able to unlock the fourth, which does have things that will work for will be positives for you. So just so you know, as you start doing the runes, this one is the only one, this snipe, and I don't know what the other ones are called. Um, that have the debuffs in there. That's perfect. The rest of them, you're only doing them to be able to unlock the fourth. I wouldn't waste the runes on the others on the other spec set at this point. Um, I think that's about it. So I would say again, biggest things is continue to focus your buffs. Oh, sorry, one more thing. From a research standpoint, you have 14.5 billion up there from a gold standpoint, and as I look at your military advantage tree, you are not super far along here. I mean, these are huge, huge buff increases. I mean, as I look at this again, like if you're going to focus some time and some speeds, spend the gold. That's a lot of gold. That's a lot of gold to be able to spend. And the same thing I would say from your military standpoint. You looks like you maybe just got this unlocked and are just starting it. I think you have a pretty healthy. I mean, you got 41,000 tax rolls. God damn! I wish I had that many. Um, so this is where I would spend. If you're spending speed, don't spend them on troops. Don't spend them on buildings. Spend them on research. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for the speeds that you have. You have plenty of gold. You have plenty of tax scrolls. And you have plenty of research stones as well. Let me take a look at this. I'm going to find one that needs a research stone. 160, yeah, you got plenty of those too. Focus on your research. You need to be grinding on the city development days. Um, Other than that, I would say hopefully that gives you some direction. I'd say key points, figuring out your defense and how you want that set up. The refines on there obviously need work and are dependent on what your build is going to look like. Only don't train any more top tier troops. Only bottom. Spear Beast, continue to grind on those. Grind in the tavern for this guy, and for Menchkov, who's the keep officer, uh, and then research. You got so much gold. You got so many tax rolls. You got a decent amount of speeds. I looked through that earlier. Those are, I would say, the areas that you need to focus on the most. But if you have any questions as you're going through, especially with the gear piece of flip flopping those around and figuring out where you want to put them, please ask. I'm um, happy to help you out as you're trying to make those decisions. Okay, hope that was helpful. See you guys later.